Brothers and sisters, we've been well fed today. I am so happy with what I know now about Indiana. You're in good hands. If the same types of things are happening in your wards and states as what was shared at the pulpit today, this is exciting. I want to take just a moment to go off script because this whole concept of sharing is powerful. And I think all too often we get away from it where we feel like we have to present it. So I want to just take a minute and I want you to share with me and others, what are some of your thoughts? What are you going to do differently now that you came to this session today than what you have been doing in the past? Let's just take 2 or 3 minutes. Actually, if you have something you'd like to share, raise your hand. Don't do it all. Okay, number one, who else would like to share something?
The Hoosiers are hesitant.
Okay, there's 2. Let's have one more volunteer. I know you all want to share something with Sister. Thank you. All right, so would you just stand, brother, in the Indiana shirt there? Hello. What are you thinking?
So I was just called as Young Men's President in our ward in Bloomington. And previous to that was Scoutmaster for 5 years. Okay. And had always kind of had this big question mark in my head with regards to varsity scouting and the venturing program. Just kind of didn't really know what it was. A lot of the time just kind of wrapped everybody into the same activity program. And I think this meeting answers a lot of those questions. It fills that question mark. It fills that gap with something really interesting. And I think I kind of have the vision, a small piece of the vision for what these 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds are supposed to be doing. I love how it was said that we should be thinking about whether we would let the deacons do this, and if we would, we should raise the bar a little. It's as Scoutmaster, thinking of everything in the context of what's the maximum amount of adventure that would overlap basically all of our young men because we're a small unit. I think this understanding what the varsity program is makes me very excited to take that back to the boys, and especially to use these quarterly programs to find some overarching theme that they're all interested in, and then just hit it on these areas of focus. So that was really useful.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Tell me your current calling.
Young Men's President for a week.
Oh, that's brand new. Well, wonderful. We didn't even talk very much about varsity and venturing, but it's interesting. That's one of his takeaways. And I, of course, asked you to be thinking about that when we began the meeting today. But there's a whole bunch of material available for varsity and venturing that you'll be able to go home now and gather.
It was Brother Lopez?
Yes, it was. Jason Lopez.
Yes, that was.
Yeah, he had to leave because he has a varsity meeting going on right now, an activity with his boys. Thank you, brother.
My comments are right along the same line. We're actually from the same ward, so I'm for the various bishop. But we had felt inspired as a bishopric, several weeks ago, that we needed a new varsity program in our ward and to invigorate that, but really had no idea of what that would look like. And so we called a varsity coach, and now I feel like we have some of the pieces that we need to be able to move forward with that. So it's been really helpful on that front. So.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bishop. Sister?
Okay. Well, my name is Carolina Leonard, and I am the second counselor in the state primary presidency in the West State, And like Sister Horton said, I don't know anything about scouting when I was called. But one of the things that is a plus for me is that I help, or I have a unit that is a Spanish unit. And there is very little program in Spanish, for us to be able to help the unit. And when I went to with that, it helped me tremendously because I was able to my what's it called, my tickets are related in helping the prepare this in the Spanish community, in Spanish training the leaders. And this program really helps me more to get a little more knowledge in how to present the programs in Spanish. We are, President Cali and I, we are presenting a program today in the Catholic Church, and believe me, I am so scared.
So is he.
Well, we are going to be scared together. But this is a program where we can learn more about how to present training, especially for me in the Spanish community.
Wonderful, sister. Thank you for sharing that with us. Brothers and sisters, I know that there'll be a little bit of time at the conclusion here for you to share with each other, but I would like you to take this concept of sharing back to your wards and stakes. And as you have opportunities to meet with your leaders, provide some opportunity for sharing instead of just instruction. Give them a chance to share some of their thoughts in terms of what's going on. And Elder Ballard talked a lot about this in his book about counseling with our councils, and giving the people that opportunity to share ideas back and forth. As I ponder upon the idea of varsity and venturing, it makes me think of a 4-story house. We don't have very many 4-story houses here in America, but in Europe, 4-story homes are not uncommon, where you have a little tiny home about this wide, but it's about this tall. So, you have your kitchen on one floor, and your living room on a different floor, and then your bedroom on another floor, and then maybe a sunroom on the 4th floor. If we think about that in terms of Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, varsity, and venturing, it's like many of us who have, for lack of a better term, an unfinished basement. How many of you have an unfinished basement? Okay, maybe not as common in Indiana. In Utah, we have lots of unfinished basements. So if you think about that in regards to this 4-story house, the first floor is Cub Scouts. That's where everyone comes in. Come to your home on the first floor. It's beautiful. It's finished. There's decorations on the wall. There's probably even a flower arrangement on the table. Who's in charge of that first floor in the Cub Scout program? Typically the sisters. Sisters are typically in charge of our homes, at least the living area. I have the garage in my home. But if that 4-story building is first floor is Cub Scouts, it's nice. And we are doing a great job across the church in Cub Scouts. And thank you, sisters, that came today. You're doing wonderful things. And your presentation, I want to get a copy of that. It was powerful. The second story of our home is going to be our Deacons Quorum, or our Boy Scout troop. Again, we're doing a pretty good job with that. Those boys are advancing. They're working on their merit badges. They're going to summer camp. They're having their weekly meetings. We a lot of times have senior patrol leaders and patrol leaders. They're doing a pretty good job. But then we get to the 3rd and 4th floor of our home, with what I'm going to refer to the unfinished part. And that's where we live. That's where our bedrooms are. We spend a lot of time up in there, working on projects, obviously sleeping. But they're unfinished. Is it exciting to be in an unfinished room? Give me some feedback. Do you like to be in the unfinished portion of your home? It's not as exciting. It's not as comfortable. You have open rafters. You may have electricity if you've run wires up that high. You may have plumbing, you may not. And so, as I think about this analogy, I'm thinking about the varsity venturing program, and I think all too often that's how we treat varsity venturing. We give it a very cursory look. We do some of the things. Like I mentioned in the analogy, we may have plumbing, we may have electricity, but we haven't implemented the full program. We aren't using all the tools the Lord has given us for those age groups. So brothers and sisters, I just want to encourage you that as you go back, that you take varsity venturing seriously. And I'm going to ask for for some feedback from Brother Callie in the coming months and years, and what's happening here in the Crossroads of the West, Crossroads of America Council in terms of varsity venturing. And I want to know if we're moving the dial. Probably the first step is for you, brethren, that are in those programs to get the resources. There's some excellent handbooks and resources available for varsity venturing. There's a lot of online resources. But I would encourage you to start. And I'm hoping that you have now created a plan as we talk today, that you can go back and do 2 or 3 specific things to get that moving forward. Baden Powell, the founder of the Scouting movement, made a lot of wonderful comments about scouting, but one of them that has kind of sunk deep in my heart over the years is that scouting is a game with purpose. We have to make this fun and exciting so the kids will want to be part of it. Some of the stuff that was shared today on the videos and whatnot, that's exciting. I was really intrigued by the boys throwing mud on each other. So, Bishop, were you a little reluctant when you started to see the mud flinging?
I think I started it, actually.
You know what? That's what boys want to do. May not be what we want to do unless you're this bishop. But boys want to get dirty. They want to do that kind of stuff. And sometimes we prevent them from having fun because we're maybe too practical. But Baden Powell said scouting is a game with a purpose. And the purpose is much deeper than getting dirty or earning a merit badge or getting a varsity letter or getting a belt loop or some other badge or recognition. It's much, much deeper than that. We're talking about character. We're talking about citizenship. We're talking about fitness. We're talking about the values found in the oath and law that are lifelong, that are going to help our young people be the leaders of this nation, leaders of our church, leaders of our communities, leaders of our schools. They may even become my doctor and your doctor, or dentist, or a whole slew of other things that they could potentially become. And we're giving them that foundation. That's the purpose. So we're providing them the game of scouting with a purpose. Just a couple of other things that I'd like to share as we conclude today. We've all heard about the T's of scouting. There's several T's. Some people say there's 4 T's. Some say 5 T's. Some say that there's 5 T's and then some other letters. I'm going to explore this just briefly with you. Some of the T's that we have to think about are testimony. As we identify leaders that we want to work with our boys, do they have a testimony? Do they have a conviction that this is real? I'm not talking about just a testimony of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm talking about a testimony of scouting. Is it deep in their heart? Do they understand the scouting way of things? Do they understand the priesthood way of things? Time. Do the individuals we call to be leaders have the physical time to dedicate to this? Or are they so consumed with their family or their profession or their schooling that this might not be the right calling for them at this point in their life? That's something that we have to consider. Training. Have they or are they willing to invest what it takes? Sad is the day that we have a leader that is functioning in a position that has never been to training. In my humble opinion, they need to do Fast Start the first week that they get the calling. Fast Start's online. And if we as leaders aren't telling them that they need to go online and do Fast Start, shame on us. Fast Start Youth Protection should be done that first week. Leadership Specific should be done within 3 months. 3 months out of the gate, if they haven't gone to Leadership Specific, then what are they doing? Leadership Specific for Cub Scouts is mostly online. Boy Scouts, Varsity Venturing, they have to go to a training course. But let's make that training course available. I'm going to give Scott a challenge on that. Let's make Leadership Specific more available to our leaders. Either provide it at more venues or give the tools to our leaders to be able to do it at will. There's nothing that says that they can't do Leadership Specific at somebody's house on a Friday night. You know, sometimes we get locked in the idea that, you can only do Leadership Specific if it's on a Saturday morning in the church. It doesn't say that anywhere. We can do Leadership Specific in a lot of creative ways, but we need to make that more available. And then I think that a leader should go through look back within a year. I know that's a bold statement, but if we're going to take this seriously, then we need to get the training, we need to move forward. We got to quit talking about it. The time is far spent. So those are just some ideas on training. Tenure. Are we allowing our leaders to stay in in these positions to mentor the boys. President Callan and I had a conversation, I think it was last night, about how boys need mentors. A boy that joins the Boy Scout troop at 12 needs to see a group of adults mentoring him for those 6 years. Boy Scouts varsity adventure. He needs to have some continuity. Typically, the bishopric is in there for 5 to 6 years. But what about the young men leaders? Are we leading them in there? Are we leading them in there long enough to be able to mentor those boys so that those boys know who to go to? And the bishopric can't be with those boys all the time, but their leaders can. The leaders can be with them on weeknights, mutual activities, they can be with them on campouts, they can be with them on Sunday meetings. But we need to allow them to develop that tenure of time so that they can create those connections with the boys. And then another one is tenacity. And I'll let you explore tenacity on your own, but we need to have leaders who have tenacity. And then the other letter I want to add is R. I know it's not a T, but bear with me. It's 5 T's and an R. R is rapport. We have to have leaders working with boys that can relate with boys. They may have all these other T's or be willing to accomplish these other T's, but if they don't have rapport, if they can't connect on a boy level, if they're not willing to sling mud on each other, like this good bishop, then maybe they're not the right person for that position. But maybe they would be a great committee chairman or a committee member. They're more behind the scenes. They're another critical part of the scouting movement. We need strong committees backing us up. But the ones that are frontline men and women that are working directly with boys, they need to have that rapport with them. So as we think about that, essentially what I'm saying is we're qualifying an adult leader. Are they qualifiable? So as we're thinking about who should we call to be in these positions, think through those 5 T's and the R's before you make the call. And really seek for inspiration in terms of that. Brad Harris, in his book, The Trail to Testimony, talks a lot about this. And he talks about when we're looking at our young men's program, we need to put our very best leaders with those boys. It's that important. All right, 2 or 3 quick topics I want to delve into for a moment, and then I'll conclude. Real growth through scouting is a big concept in the church right now. And this was created by Brother David Beck. He didn't coin the phrase real growth, but he coined the phrase real growth through scouting. And then Sister Wixom, the primary general president, caught on. There's really 2 facets to this concept of real growth. One is the real growth of the individual. Are they growing by participation in the scouting program? Are they gaining the skills necessary to be successful? Are they gaining the leadership, character, citizenship, fitness, those types of things? And then the other idea with real growth through scouting is a fairly new concept. And it is an idea that we have such high-quality scouting programs in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that everybody wants to be part of it. That means we're opening up our doors and saying to the community, we are so passionate about scouting that we want you to be part of our scouting program. Regardless of what religion you belong to, we have a good thing going on here, and we want you to be part of it. So what that means in terms of nuts and bolts is that we need to have our young men that are in our programs invite their friends to join our scouting programs, to join your Cub Scout packs, to join your troops, your teams, and your crews. So often in this job, I get phone calls from all over the nation, people saying, "Oh, we've only got 2 boys in our Cub Scout pack. You know, what should we do? Should we combine with another ward?" We're frustrated, and it applies to Boy Scout troops as well, and the other programs. And the direction that the church is headed right now, and what we're counseling units to do, is go out and recruit more kids. Don't combine. You have a ward. You have responsibility for that ward. Make it work. If you've only got 2 or 3 boys in one of your programs, go find some more kids to join it. It doesn't matter if they're members of our church. Invite them to participate in our scouting program. So some of the questions that you may be thinking in your mind, well, how are we going to pay for it? It's very expensive. I know scouting's expensive. You know it. We all know it's expensive. But the LDS Church is willing to pay the registration for any youth and any adult that joins our program, regardless of what their religion is. Anybody who joins an LDS unit is automatically paid for by the Boy Scouts of America. Or excuse me, by the LDS Church. Thank you, I caught myself there. Regardless, and if we tripled the numbers of scouts in our program, the church isn't going to question it. They're not going to say, oh wow, it's getting too expensive for scouting. They want everyone to participate. They don't want the registration fee to be a reason that they don't participate. Second, the handbook of instruction clearly states that we can ask non-member families to pay a portion towards scouting. Because the ward budget covers the members of the church. For the non-members that join our programs, we can just ask their parents just to pay an equal amount. And parents, they're happy to do that. I talked to a lot of people across the nation because they expect that scouting is going to cost something. So those are a couple ideas in terms of how you can help fund it. And both of those ideas are in the handbook. And there's a third idea in the handbook that clearly states that you can call a non-member to a scouting position. And it doesn't say that you can only call them to be members of the committee. You can call them to any scouting position in your ward, and they can serve as long as they're willing to live by, or to operate within our standards as members of the church. So think about that. I've given President Callie some reports on real growth. We're starting to track how many kids are actually registered in LDS units. I mentioned earlier you have 902 LDS, or you have 902 currently registered in LDS units in this council. And we'd like to see that grow. And I've given him some reports that he'll receive quarterly so that we can be tracking our growth in terms of how many kids we have in our programs. All right, the final thing I want to talk about is the 100th anniversary of our partnership. This is the 99th year of our partnership. On June 9th, 1913, the LDS Church and the Boy Scouts of America entered an official partnership. And next year, we will celebrate the 100th anniversary of the partnership. We were the first organization to partner with the Boy Scouts of America. And the top leadership of the church and the top leadership of the Boy Scouts work very closely together. The relationship has never been stronger. President Monson is still on the board. David Beck, the Young Men's General President, is on the board. We have several other members of the church that are on the board. In fact, the current president of the Boy Scouts of America, a man by the name of Wayne Perry, is LDS. First time in 99 years that we've had one of our members as the president of the Boy Scouts of America. So it's pretty exciting. We have several other LDS men that are on the national board. So there's a tight relationship there. Next year we have lots of exciting activities, or exciting things that are going to be happening to celebrate this partnership. On Tuesday, October 29th, 2013, there will be a commemoration. It will originate from the conference center right there at Temple Square, and then it will be broadcast across the nation. I'm not sure if it's going to be a broadcast satellite to the Stake Center or if it's going to be an internet feed. That's yet to be determined, but you will be able to have access to that. We will also have 4 remote sites across the nation. I'm not sure the location of those, but there will be some interaction similar to what the Boy Scouts did at their 100th anniversary, where there's some interaction between different sites. So make sure that's on your calendar. It will be at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, so that will be 8 p.m. Indiana time. The next item is that from August to December, there'll be a display in the Church History Museum on scouting. So if your family is planning to go to Salt Lake between August and December of next year, make sure you go over to the Church History Museum. There'll be 30 original Rockwell paintings on display, as well as the original charter and other artifacts of the prophets and apostles over the last 100 years to help celebrate our partnership. That'll all be on display from August to December. My office, which is the office of the LDS BSA Relationships, will produce a patch, a pin, and a coin. One of those items, I'm not sure which, either the patch, pin, or coin, will have some requirements. So there's going to have to be some effort on everyone's part so that you can learn more about this partnership to be able to earn that particular item. And we'll have more information about that in the next couple of weeks. And then the final thought is that each local council has been asked to do something to celebrate the partnership. And I know the gentleman earlier talked a little bit about what you're doing here in this council. So that's exciting. Well, I know that I kept you a little bit long, but I wanted to share those thoughts with you. Again, thank you for all that you do for scouting and for our young men. We are creating the next generation And whatever time we can put into this is valuable time, and the Lord is mindful of each of our own situations. If you are struggling with scouting, if you're struggling with why the church has chosen to partner with scouting, if you feel like scouting is too complicated or too expensive, then I encourage you to go home tonight and kneel down and pray about it and ask Heavenly Father to help you understand why the church is partnering with scouting. And if you don't get an answer in the next couple of days, then next Fast Sunday, fast about it. Because I'm asking you at this moment in time to work through your concerns about scouting so that when you and I meet again, that will be water on the bridge. And we can move forward, locked arm in arm with the scouting program to benefit our young men. I know that this is an inspired program, and I'm thankful for the opportunity that I have to come and spend just a little bit of time with you today and share that in